Welcome to Mintel's Little Conversation podcast, actionable insight backed by data. I'm Lynn Dornblaser, Client Advisor, Mintel Solutions, and today I'm joined with Stephanie Mattucci, who's Director of Food and Drink here at Mintel. Today, we're going to be talking about Natural Products Expo West, which was just a couple of weeks ago in Anaheim, beautiful Anaheim, California. Just a couple notes before we get started talking about what we saw at the show. Stephanie and I were both there. There were about 60,000 people there, about 3,200 exhibitors, big ones, small ones, every single thing in between. There was food, beverage, supplements, and of course, Natural Products Expo West. So it's a focus on organic and natural foods. So, Stephanie, there was a lot going on at the show, and you were one of the lucky ones who went to some of the educational sessions. What were your big takeaways from those sessions?
Well, Lynn, there's so much to see at the show. It's impossible to get to it all. And I'm excited to watch some of the recordings of some of the sessions that I didn't get a chance to go to. Now, after the fact, you know me, I'm a huge nerd. So anytime I can learn more, I'm sitting there soaking it up. But one of the key themes that I took away from the presentations that I did get to attend was this idea of collaboration. And of course, the natural and organics movement, was a key theme of that. But them talking about how much stronger their industry is working together, really this idea of collaboration and leaning into these innovative business models. There was lots of discussions around resourcefulness or building those resilient supply chains. So you can think about things like upcycled ingredients, but looking at that as the business strategy and really using those for the greater good. So I thought that was a really positive message that was coming out of it. Again, that emphasis on community and purpose. One of the things that they had introduced at the keynote was the purpose pledge. I don't know if you got a chance to hear about that at all. So it's really an idea of the shared accountability that brands are taking on to kind of go to that next level, of the community and support and that ethical and environmental responsibility. So going even beyond what they've done in the past. So that was really interesting to hear them launch that campaign as well.
Interesting. That purpose pledge feels like there's, not only is it absolutely essential for this segment of the industry, and I can totally see how important that would be, but it feels like that could be an opportunity, a threat perhaps, to some of the very biggest companies too.
It could. I mean, I think what I was seeing out of this is this need to work together. There is so much confusion and chaos right now in the news, and a lot of people are wondering what they should be doing next. So this idea of working together, to rise through and kind of get your message across in through all the chaos and the noise is really going to be a key strategy going forward, no matter what size you are.
Yeah, well, it's wonderful to hear some rays of hope, I think, when it comes to what's going on in the food industry. So in thinking about what was on the floor, I know you and I both walked the floor a little bit together, a lot of it separately, so we both saw a lot of different things. What struck you? What are some of the big themes that you identified?
Hydration. If you're not hydrating and hydrating plus everything else, I think you're going to die. So they were definitely an amplified hydration situation. You cannot just drink a beverage. You have to do a yes and approach with your beverage. If you think of the old comedy routine, you don't shut down a scene, you yes and build on it. So it's not just hydrating, it's hydrating and optimizing your brain. It's hydrating and immunity. It's hydrating and probiotics. So long gone are the days of just simple water hydration.
Right. Well, I guess that makes sense with there being so much focus on hydration and beverages in general to make it be all about water plus other things.
Absolutely. Lynn, I even saw a product that wasn't even, it was a hydration gummy, actually. So it was on the supplement side of things, but you would eat this gummy and then, it's supposed to help with your hydration. But when you read the packaging a little bit further, you're supposed to eat those 3 gummies with 8 ounces of water. So,
Okay. Right. So the gummy is the thing providing those additional benefits.
Right. But you still have to drink some water. Right.
Yeah. Exactly. What are some of the ingredients that you see with some of those hydration beverages?
Oh, I mean, The magnesium was a huge ingredient that I saw around the show, not only just for hydration, but also some of the mental health kind of relaxation, things like that. We've seen magnesium quite a bit in the supplement space too. I saw also, natural-ish positioned electrolytes, so sea salt electrolytes. When I pressed at the booth a couple times, what exactly is the makeup of this? I didn't get a lot of clarity, but just sea salt. So, kind of rolling dice on what that combination of minerals would be.
Yeah, totally. And I know one of the other key themes you and I have talked about is, you mentioned earlier, and that's upcycled. But it's different. It's a little different, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a bit more behind the scenes. Of course, there are some of those brands out there that are really talking about it, and that is a pillar and identity for their brand. But there are other brands that you would not have any idea that they were upcycled unless you were looking very closely. One of the most interesting ones that I saw, well, actually, I'm going to call out two. So there was one that was a fruit company that what they did is they took used berries, berries that, not used berries, but berries that would be discarded, damaged in processing or not the perfect size or weight. And what they did is they turned those into a puree. And they didn't stop there. What they did then is take that puree and blend it with dates to balance out the sweetness, I believe. And then they formed them into little berry cubes, if you will, like berry ice cubes. So here you have a frozen berry that is really easy to eat because you don't have any of the seeds or some of that textural issues that you would have with a conventional frozen berry. It blends really well in a smoothie. You can use it for baking, and they're upcycling that ingredient in a way that looks very familiar to a consumer and actually, in fact, gives them even more benefits for that. So I thought that was a really cool product.
And it's really flexible too. Eat it as a snack, drop it in the blender for your smoothie in the morning. And no statements about that consumers would think of.
They had a small upcycled association logo at their booth, but
because I think it feels like one of the big things that consumers don't understand about upcycled ingredients or get concerned when it comes to upcycled ingredients is that idea of this is something that you would throw away and now you're putting it in my food, which isn't correct, but it's one of those very easily misunderstood things.
Absolutely. I mean, if you look at the history of whey powder, that was kind of one of the big breakthrough upcycled ingredients from cheese making. And now we have no problem putting that in our smoothies every day.
Yeah, exactly right. I know one of the upcycled ones, you said there were two you were going to mention. What's the other one?
The other one was an egg-based one, which I was surprised to see with everything going on with the avian flu. So what they do here is they have their hard-boiled eggs, for ready-to-eat consumption that don't make it past the quality check in terms of visual appearance. So, if you can think about peeling a hard-boiled egg, sometimes the shell snags on it and you crack that egg white and it doesn't look as pretty and it's not what someone would want when they're buying that hard-boiled egg ready to eat. So what they do is they take those visually defective ones and they blend it up and they make it into they were talking about it as a dairy-free yogurt. And it tasted fantastic. To me, it reminded me more of a custard. So I would maybe talk about it as a dairy-free custard instead of a dairy-free yogurt because yogurt is so heavily associated with dairy. But it was really good, and they had some dips too that were also very interesting, high protein, and a great way to use that product. But they had no upcycled positioning on the product there. Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah,
and we saw a lot going on with eggs, didn't we?
We did. Yes. What were some of the things that you saw, Lynn?
Well, I think actually this is one that you had mentioned to me, but then I went to take a look at them, and that was the poached eggs that are still in the shell.
Oh, yes. Yes.
I just thought that was so interesting, and for my non-food science brain, all I could think of was, I don't know how the heck you did this, but I think I want this at home because I love poached eggs and I'm able to make a pretty good poached egg, but it's a bit of a pain, Absolutely. So to be able to just heat it up in a water bath and then you're all set to go. It's unbelievable. It was unbelievable.
So convenient. The other thing that I thought was really interesting about that product is they were pasteurized. So if you do, right now there is so much concern about the safety of eggs and learning more about avian flu and should you or should you not be eating raw eggs or undercooked eggs. this product is pasteurized, so it does alleviate that concern if you would contract perhaps, avian flu from an undercooked egg. So I thought that was an interesting position, especially for something like a poached egg, which is going to be runny.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. There were egg substitutes too, and now I have completely forgotten the ones that stood out to me. Because there were
a couple of them. In terms of taste and quality, I felt like to me personally, they just still weren't quite the same as an egg, but we're getting there little by little all the time.
Yeah.
But there was, saw a couple of that. Also some egg innovation too, where it was using egg protein as a chip, eggs in all sorts of different startups too for protein.
Yeah.
Snackability, which is another key theme I saw through there. Everything is a snack.
Yes, absolutely. To me, I know one of the things that I talk about so often when it comes to snacking is that snack isn't a category, it's an occasion. And so truly anything can be a snack because it's that small something that you need at a particular time of day. And given what does our data show? I think our data says that it's a pretty large percentage of consumers in the U.S. snack 5 or more times a day.
Okay.
And I remember back 10, 15 years ago looking at similar data that we had, and we had categorized super snackers as ones who snacked, I believe it was 3 or more times a week.
Things have changed a lot.
Things have changed a lot. Yes, absolutely. Yes, I was astounded at how many different kinds of things were positioned as snacks. I know I've got one of the products that I picked up that I haven't snacked on yet at home is freeze-dried banana chips.
Oh, yes. Those are delicious. I had some of those too. Yeah, my daughter gave them a try. She thumbs up those as well, and she's got a very
particular palate,
yes.
Yep. Yep. What other snacky things did you see that struck you?
Some of the new ones that caught my eye were the tofu and the tempeh chips from a couple different companies.
Yeah.
So, though interesting to see those products kind of tapping into the fermented food trend and the interest of that, but then making that a snack. Also a lot of packaged like vegetable snacks like olives, fermented kind of vegetables, pickles, carrots, those kind of things in a snackable format.
Yeah. It also felt like there were also plenty of, for lack of a better descriptor, smoothie kind of drinks that are more than just hydration, but to provide a bit of help you feel fuller, those kinds of things to serve as a snack as well.
Yes.
So it seems like that is continuing.
Yeah, on the yes and element, everything there wasn't just for hunger, or protein. It's that and fixing your gut and healing that, or fixing your brain. Those are some of the other, giving you energy. That was another big one.
Yeah, relaxation, and. It also struck me too in the supplement space how there's something for everyone, for every possible purpose and in every format you could possibly imagine, including strips coming back for delivering benefits. And I know one of our other colleagues who was at the show couldn't stop talking about those strips because she had gotten some samples and was taking I think it was the mood ones it was the immunity ones. Dissolving one of those in her mouth every day and talked about how well it functioned and in terms of like dissolving and everything, So it feels like with supplements too, there's just a lot going on that's different and interesting.
Absolutely. Those formats are more interactive. They're more fun than your traditional, pill or capsule. It gives you a bit of more of an experience, which, really stood out at the show, that experiential portion of it, not just even, eating it, but even just visually looking at everything going on there. One thing I kind of changing the topic a little bit, but that visual appeal of all the different brands. They had such big personalities at the show. You had different themes. This is a campsite. This is a mini farm. You had everything there. So really that visual aesthetic and that experiential quality of what we eat and enjoy played through a lot.
And that makes a show like this one really visually taxing after a while, because there's so much going on, so many colors, so much movement, so many people. I know I found myself having to take more breaks than I thought I would have to, just to get away from all of the input. It was just too much input at one point.
Why do you think I was in the educational sessions, Lynn? Just reset a little bit. Yep. Yeah,
exactly right. What would you say was the most interesting product you saw?
One of the ones I really liked was the Easy Bombs. They were a bath bomb that you would use for your crock pot or your slow cooker. So what you do here, it's a kind of a ball of seasoning that you just toss in with the meat of your choice and some water or broth perhaps, and slow cook it. And it makes a very easy, way to cook your meat and get a very delicious meal afterwards. So I thought that was such a cool product, borrowing a format from a different industry and then using it in a way that's very, fun and easy to use, instead of measuring out all the ingredients and weighing that. And then seasoning too, it has its sometimes it can start caking. So something like a ball format kind of solves that problem of having a rock hard seasoning blend, because it's designed to be that way. So really cool.
It's also that I thought that one was really interesting too. And the other thing about that one that struck me is it allows consumers to have something a little bit different without having to invest in 6 or 8 or 12 different spices, because one of them was birria. Mm-hmm. Another one was Asian. Was it? It wasn't tikka
no,
masala.
It was a pozole and a tinga. Right. I believe, yeah.
Oh, tinga. The tinga was the one I was thinking of. You've got a lot of spices in each of these, and to be able to not have to buy all those individual spices to discover that it's good, but maybe not the thing for you. Yeah. That's a big investment, and here it is all in one package.
Absolutely. There are some other sauce, blends of seasoning, a lot of Indian cuisine, making those more convenient with different sauces and things like that. Flavor profiles were phenomenal. Kind of the format though was pretty conventional in terms of a jar or a container of sauce. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There was one sauce that I saw that really made me wonder. I didn't taste it, but it was a pasta sauce that was extremely high protein.
Okay.
So called Sturdy.
Okay.
Sturdy sauce. And I want to say the jar, which to me looked like it would serve 2, perhaps, had, was it 40 grams of protein in one jar? So that's a lot of protein. If you figure the size of the jar, I would guess 2, maybe 3 servings. That's a big hit of protein, and it was just a marinara.
Right, but if it's 3 servings, then you're down to, let's say it's 40 grams, just a little over, 12 grams per serving or something like that. I'm not doing my math right, but, so it's right. For the individual, you're not getting that 40 grams unless you sit down and eat an entire jar of sauce,
exactly.
Which, there may be some olfactory limitations to that.
Yes, exactly. I just thought that was really unexpected. That wasn't, I didn't expect to see something like that. Was there anything you saw that really, really stood out to you as being really different or extraordinary, anything like that?
One thing that stood out to me, but it was kind of more behind the scenes, kind of just, can I say vibe, was this Mediterranean aesthetic. So looking at some of the booths with the different tiles and pretty bold colors reminiscent of the Mediterranean region, but then also tapping into that longevity trend so associated with the Mediterranean diet. Blue Zone Kitchens was there with their ready-to-eat meals, long talking about the blue zone regions of the world that are associated with longer lifespans and health spans. So they were there, but that was just one example of those different types of cuisines, tapping into the different food items from those different regions and how that can benefit your long-term health. And I think we'll see more about longevity going forward. It's been such a huge topic lately, but also, this idea of trying to stave off or reduce the risk of chronic diseases. The counter side of that is how can we live longer and better?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. There was one product that I saw that I thought to myself, I can totally see how this makes sense. I don't believe I've seen anything like this before. And wow, what a simple thing. It was from an oat company. I think you and I talked about it. An oat company with a product that it calls oat rice, mm-hmm. which is just oats, but they look just like grains of rice. And you cook them like you would cook wild rice, so it cooks a little bit longer. Tastes like wild rice. It has that same texture, that same mouthfeel, but it's just oats, and it's literally just oats, which I thought was a really fascinating product that also too talked about regenerative agriculture and all of the great benefits of oat production as opposed to the water used for rice and, all of that. So it was a really good story, mm-hmm. but a very surprising product that tasted much better than I had expected it.
But I like that. I like that it fits into the way people understand how to cook a product, understand how to cook rice, and it makes it very easy for them to adapt that product and use it in their homes, because that can be such a barrier if you have something new, and then learning how to cook it new is another challenge. So I like that innovation there, and that's cool.
Yeah. Was there anything that you didn't see that you thought you would see more of?
Yeah, so the last time I went to the show has to be over 10 years ago. And I remember then it was such a big emphasis on hemp protein, CBD, that was the buzzy thing there. And this show did not really see that. It wasn't an emphasis or even there. Instead this time it's more all about mushrooms, anything nootropic, adaptogen, even kind of the plant alternatives, some mushroom brands or fungi brands kind of talking about that and using that as the substrate there versus a different plant protein. So I thought that was interesting to see that switch from, maybe one, what is the word I'm trying to use? One functional recreational product to another, depending on the spectrum, using it in different functional foods. So that was interesting to see that switch. And then also the switch from the big play and push on organic to regenerative agriculture. They're both work together, but more of this idea of this resiliency, and building these food systems and to repair, not just to, have that claim. So that was nice to see too.
With the mushrooms, I even saw a dietary supplement with all of the mushroom benefits and all of that was shaped like a mushroom. The supplements were shaped like little baby mushrooms. Yeah, yes. that was just kind of fun and a little bit silly. Yeah. It feels like, although we saw a handful of companies with meat substitutes that were imitating animal protein, so the taste and texture and look of animal protein, it felt like more of the meat substitutes were just celebrating their vegetableness.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I would agree with that too. Yep.
Yeah, there was one company that had really nice veggie burgers, different types. It had different groupings of ingredients, and then they also had what they called veggie fries, which were sweet potato based, but also, and there was like a purple sweet potato, there were 3 or 4 different varieties, but they also had chickpeas for added protein, and other vegetables as well. So I thought that was an interesting approach to take in thinking about meat substitutes. Yeah. Were there any flavors that really stood out to you as being really different?
Well, I don't know if it's different, but on that same theme, as I mentioned, the Mediterranean element, noticed a lot of dates, pistachios.
Yeah.
Saw seeds coming through a lot in the snacking areas, but even things like tahini, a sesame seed based product. So those type of elements really stood out to me, especially the pistachio. That seemed to be everywhere. Pistachio milk, pistachio coffee was one I saw. It was like a pistachio, ground pistachio for coffee alternative. Certainly coffee prices are a challenge right now. So interesting to see pistachio step in for that.
Yep. And pistachios in different formats for snacks as well, I think. Yeah. I know one of the products that I saw was a flavored sparkling water that had a flavor name that didn't link to any flavor that you could understand. So thinking about perfume names and some of the names of the really unusual Coca-Cola varieties that have come out. And I think Mountain Dew has done some of those. All of those names that you really have to interpret. There was a flavored water that had one, and I asked them what flavor it was. Well, the flavor name was Sunshine.
Yep.
That was the name of the flavor. And I asked them what it was supposed to taste like, and their comment was, well, Sunshine tastes different to everyone.
Oh, interesting.
So they wouldn't say what it actually tasted like. And I'm not sure I could describe what it tasted like, just like some of those Coca-Cola ones. So I think but to me, that was an exception. It felt like flavor, all the different kinds of flavors, all the different ethnic flavors, many of which seemed really authentically ethnic as opposed to not as authentic.
And the more detailed provenance on that, it wasn't just this is Italian, this was from the Dolomites. It wasn't just this is this one flavor. Is very specific and dialed in. It wasn't just orange, it was Sicilian orange or something like that. So I'm sticking on the Italy theme here, but it wasn't just limited to that. It was also some state-specific products that I saw as well. So I saw a coffee from New Mexico that was really focused on the New Mexico branding, the land of enchantment. Also some Texas pecans and things like that. So really focused on their origin and their story and connecting it to the farmers and the community. Yeah. So back to community.
Yes, exactly. Back to community. So I think any last thoughts or ideas you want to leave our listeners with when it comes to Expo West?
Yeah, I thought it was even though we had a lot of rainy days when we were out there and the weather wasn't quite as you would expect for Southern California. If anyone else was out there, it was, I feel like I brought it with me from Wisconsin here. But, there was still a lot of positivity, a lot of excitement, a lot of collaboration and community. And I think that was really inspiring to see. And I'm excited to see what the next kind of round of products are going to be, because I think they're going to be really innovative in these unique ways, going beyond just the traditional functional foods, even though we talked about that with some of the beverages. Some of these kind of quietly innovative products are going to be really exciting to watch. So,
okay, great. So thinking about what we've talked about today, there are a couple things that really stand out to me, and you've said most of them just now. I love this idea of quiet innovation, of products that provide a real benefit, but it isn't necessarily this big, shocking kind of product, but something that provides a tangible benefit in an easy to understand way for consumers. Yep. That I would say there's going to be a lot going on regarding that. And your comments about the mood being hopeful and upbeat and collaborative is so refreshing, and I think so important to hear right now. Yeah. Because the more of that we can have, the better, I think. But then just the one really specific thing, I think there's going to be a lot to watch when it comes to anything Mediterranean. Mm-hmm. And if we want to extend that further, anything that's about very specific provenance. Yeah. So both in terms of the benefits that the product provides, thinking of Mediterranean diets, but also the assurance that the product is going to be the quality that they say it's going to be because of where it's from.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, this has been a terrific conversation, Stephanie, and I really appreciate all the insight that you've been able to provide. But for everyone listening in, this isn't the end of the conversation. If you want to see some images of some of the products that we talked about today and others that we didn't, check out our recent post on Mintel's LinkedIn page because there's a lot more information and images there. Also, remember that you can subscribe to Mintel's Little Conversation podcast wherever you get your podcasts. And for more information, you can always go to mintel.com. Thanks a lot, and see you on another Mintel Little Conversation.